what I have already learned, that I should never speak after your president and after my former boss, president of the European Commission, because basically there's nothing left to be said. Nevertheless, I will try to entertain you for a while, and I would like to start by saying why I was, you maybe didn't notice, but I was like 5 minutes late, because I'm chairing still. There is my committee on regional development is pending in the building of the European Parliament, and I have invited the Greek minister responsible for development and competitiveness to explain also to us in the European Parliament what Greece is doing for growth, because we all talk about the debts and deficits, but each time I go to the regions or to local communities in Greece, I think that there is a huge need to start really growing, and also huge unused potential. I don't know if you have also Greek breweries in your organization, but certainly Greece today is a perfect example of how much remains to be done to resume growth in Europe. And without embarking on growth, there is no hope that we can start reducing our deficits and start paying our debts. President Barroso was saying what the European Commission is doing, what Europe is doing now to cope with the crisis, which is, we still discuss, is it an economic, financial, or is it a political or leadership crisis? There is a lot of dimension to this crisis that's absolutely clear. But we in the European Parliament, we believe that probably the time has come that, in addition to discussing how to reinvent Europe, how to find a new format for the effective and efficient functioning, especially of the Eurozone, this is something which is being, for the last 3 years, basically permanently discussed. We should also start to be more serious on discussing and sparing no efforts to make European economy grow, because clearly if Europe needs something desperately today, among those most important things is certainly also the need to grow. In the European Parliament, we are now, according to the new treaty, sort of much stronger. Some of us feel that we should use this increased by the treaty strength of this democratically elected European institution, and we are having more to say in all the entire legislative process. We used to be, for most of the legislative processes, just an opinion giver. That was the time when I was still commissioner, and I was happy with this. But now I am on the other side of the barricade, and we are basically on equal footing with the Council for most of the areas which are under legislative process, which for some of us means a source of power and happiness. For most of us, however, it means increased responsibility, and that's why there is a lot of I would say debate and discussions, and sometimes also conflicts between the Parliament and the Council. The Parliament is usually very strongly supporting the European Commission. So we are all involved, I would say all the European institutions now in looking for solutions. I don't know how much, I can imagine that you also depend on external funding, that you do not fund yourself, your investment only from your own sources. So you probably might have noticed that we have reformed thoroughly the European financial sector. We have moved from one extreme, which was no regulation for financial sectors for decades of European integration, and now basically regulating everything that is moving in financial sector, without yet fully understanding the total impact of all the new regulations on the capacity of financial sector to finance growth and finance economic change. So I'm just saying openly that there is a lot of also doubts about discussions about how to do things, how to solve things. It's very difficult. I think it would be very difficult for anybody of the European politicians or political leaders to say that we really know everything, that we understand what will be the consequences of how we cope with the crisis. some of our leaders are criticized for being too slow, for providing decisions that are not sufficiently strong, and so that we are generally following the markets. And there's a lot of talk here in Brussels about the lack of confidence between the markets and the governments, or the markets and European institutions. So as President Barroso said, we are really living extremely difficult times of crisis. And for me, as it was announced that I'm a Pole, as also coming from a member state that does not belong to the Eurozone, for me also the issue of what we call today two-speed Europe, this is a very important issue, because whether we want it or not, and I think we should all want it, the Eurozone should go faster, should make its relations, its integration deeper, and it should better coordinate. It should really be an avant-garde of the changes in the European Union. But having said that, at the same time, I think it's extremely dangerous that we will come out of this crisis as a divided Europe, as this part of Europe that is outside a Eurozone, does not belong to the decision-making process, is certainly affected by everything what is decided by the Eurozone leaders, and can, if you are not a strong leader, like we fortunately have a strong government in Poland, you can be easily diverted onto a track which would increase the distance between Eurozone and yourself. And if you want to be a member in 5 or 10 years from now, it might be even more difficult than today to become a Eurozone member. And I belong to those who believe that we should expand Eurozone, and I see Euro as a common currency as a potentially stabilizing factor, not as a destabilizing factor. So that's just to tell you that there are so many things, difficult things around in Europe, and such a strong involvement of all the European institutions, including European Parliament, while at the same time people know very little about us. I mean, normally they probably see the empty big room because we are all I'm here instead of being there, and there are many other things like that. So there is also this challenge of better communicating with the citizens, and that's something that for the time being I think we have not found the right instrument to get closer, the citizens to get closer to Europe, and Europe to get closer to the citizens. So that just adds to the challenges. But as I said, my obsession today, and many of us think of growth, and I think that today, for growth, as we spoke with the Greek minister, of course it's very important that we have all the things right at the European level, all the regulatory framework, and also at national level, all the red tapes gone, and all those good things that can happen to SMEs that need financing, and that need also freedom to act, and to increase employment, to become more competitive. So national and European level is very important, but without doubt, growth is happening down there on the ground, in the city, in a village, in a region, and that's why I believe that today we have to really underline very strongly the importance of all those that can generate growth from below, that play an important role in the local context, in the regional context. And I could see it also in some regions of Greece. Recently in September I was in Peloponnesus, where you have huge potential, and really people thinking how to use cabotage, how to use better the long coast they have there, which is basically empty, and how to use better the fact that it's such a clean, environmentally wise, such a clean territory. So a lot of probably very good water also for beer, but I don't know anything about the Greek beer. I'm sorry for this. So there is, I think, this need of helping the local authorities, the regional authorities, facilitating also their decision making, but also encouraging them to get better in touch, in contact with the companies, with businesses which are important locally, which are important regionally. And I think that most of the breweries that that you are representing are exactly those enterprises that maybe nationally you are not that big, you don't belong to the biggest in a country in terms of employment or GDP contribution to GDP, but if you think in regional terms or local terms, I think that there is probably a lot of companies that play an extremely important role as growth providers and employment providers at local and regional level. And when your president mentioned that you have recently contributed to national budgets in the European Union with a little bit more than 50 billion euro, I don't know, some people can say it's a lot, others can say it's not too much. But if you compare it, for example, with European budget, we are proposing now 50 billion euro in the new budget for 2014-2020, exactly 50 billion euro for what we call Connecting Europe facility, which is all the money we want to spend in European budget to connect better Europe, the motorways, energy, also infrastructure, the telecommunication infrastructure, and in transport, not only motorways, but all depending on the country. So I don't know whether this is big amount or not, but this is more than 30% of the annual EU budget as well.